And we're waiting for Marcia, why don't we just go ahead and get started with the work session part of it?
Okay.
I think, Tyler, I don't know if you can watch for Marcia and,
Yep.
talk to us a little bit about the mural policy that we sent in June. Do you have any updates on that?
If I'm being 100% honest, I do not have any update on that at the moment. We are going to be finishing our annual audit this week,
Okay.
which will free up a great deal of my time. So I should be able to have an update regarding that for the September meeting.
Okay, so I think Pam and I had worked on that mural policy, looking at other cities' mural policies, and we came up with a rough draft of a policy. But we need city staff input to know what steps we need to go through. I know that we have questions for other departments and the city council, and need to have some public input. So we're just really looking for direction on that. Okay, so moving on. We don't have any other guests, correct?
No.
Okay. So the next item is the Artists Urban Renewal Agency Board report pertaining to the Zoom meetings and other prior input. The Urban Renewal Board had asked to take a pause and asked the Arts Commission to hold public meetings to get public input on the proposal design and make changes that incorporate the input. So when you have time, if you haven't already, you can read that report. That has been submitted, and anybody who's read the report, if you have any discussion, then we could do that now, or we can move on.
The only thing I would add to that is Jeff and myself are working on compiling those public comments that were received during the listening sessions. So we don't have that finalized as of yet, but we're hoping to finish that up beginning of next week. So we'll play it by ear once we get that compiled.
Okay. Great. Anything else? Okay, so moving on. The conflict of interest review. Has anyone read that Tyler has attached to the agenda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
In his report, did you want to read that, Tyler? Since I don't think everyone has read it. Or do you want me to read it?
Yes. So conflict of interest. There's two main questions when we talk about conflict of interest. The first is, what is a conflict of interest as defined by the Oregon ethics law? And the second question is, what are the two types of conflict of interest? So for the first question, conflict of interest, official action by the public official could or would result in a financial benefit or detriment to the public official, a relative of the public official, or business with which either is associated. And as a matter of statutory conflict of interest, when both of these conditions apply, the official act will cause monetary gain or monetary loss. The monetary gain or loss will be to the public official, or relative of the public official, or the business, as I already said, with which the public official or relative is associated. Secondly, types of conflict of interest.
Tyler, just a minute. There's a lot of feedback. Can everybody mute if you're not speaking, please?
Thanks, Pam.
It's hard to limit.
Okay. I'll start speaking again. Hopefully we don't have any more of that feedback. So the Oregon Ethics Commission identifies types of conflict of interest, actual and potential. The difference between an actual conflict of interest and a potential conflict of interest is determined by the words would and could. A public official is met with an actual conflict of interest when the public official participates in action that would affect the financial interest of the official's relatives, or a business with which the official or relative is associated. And a public official is met with a potential conflict of interest when the public official participates in an action that could affect financial interest of the official, relative of the official, or business with which the official or the relative is associated. Lots of, legal mumbo jumbo kind of language in that, but the short version is essentially the Oregon ethics law pertains specifically to a financial gain or loss when discussing conflict of interest or related to conflict of interest. And Becky had asked that I kind of throw something like this together just to make sure that we were all on the same page with what conflict of interest is as defined by Oregon law, and just ensure that we're all on the same page with that information.
Thank you, Tyler, because conflict of interest has a fairly defined meaning as it pertains to the commission, and those of us who originally were seated on the commission signed a conflict of interest policy that was given to us by Kim Yoshida. And I had asked if we could have a copy of what we signed, but apparently no one can lay their hands on that, and they think it went to the Oregon Ethics Committee or Commission. So I just wanted to let the new commissioners know that that's something that we signed that they should also be privy to, because you wouldn't want to run afoul of the Oregon Ethics Commission. And then our bylaws specifically say no member of the commission shall have a financial interest, either directly or indirectly, in any contract to which the city is a party. So I believe that the conflict of interest statement that we signed had very similar terms to that, but it also told you how much in dollar figures you could accept as a gift. And I don't recall if that was $25 or $50. But for new commissioners, that needs to be a part of their welcome package, along with the business cards and the badges and some other things that I'm sorry that Linda and Dan haven't, received or anything, because these are weird times and we're not having regular meetings. But I just wanted to make it clear as to what a conflict of interest is. It's a very specific thing.
I had a question regarding that. On the second part of that, Tyler, the part of the could receive monetary value, I was wondering, the only thing I think that the ones we're bringing up that there was a conflict would be that, say for example, the mural goes up, it's got the 4 foot by 4 foot artist statement, and you were to derive a commission from having that piece of artwork up because your name's on it, then you would be receiving a monetary gain from having had the mural done. And I'm wondering if just the appearance of your name on the actual artwork could, in some future time, lead to a conflict of interest. I was just wondering about that part of it. Could we get clarification maybe from someone who knows?
Well, I suppose Tyler could ask the city lawyer, but from my feeling is that as commissioners, we're in the spotlight, and what we do is in the spotlight, and we could be receiving, like Pam and I worked on the mural together, and so did Marcia. So if any of us receive commissions based on the fine work we did on those murals, that would be a conflict of interest as well. So no commissioner would should, under those circumstances, do anything in the public eye that would improve their status in the arts world.
I have a difference between restoring a mural, using your talents to restore a mural, and having a mural that is your concept on the wall with your name only on it, not something that's being fixed that somebody else did, but your own developed idea and concept and artist controlled mural.
That would be a good question for the lawyer.
Yep, I think that's an easy one to run by the city attorney, and I will email all of you the response that I received from him.
Great,
so
thanks.
It'd be a way to answer the ones who bring up that conflict, to go, we've run it by the lawyer and everything's fine.
Absolutely,
Right.
that's something that I hadn't thought about, Linda, so I appreciate that.
If I may comment, I realize that the official city conflict of interest statement is relates to finance only. However, the term conflict of interest has a much broader meaning, and I'm wondering if commissioners, if it would not be wise to discuss that at some point, and perhaps make a determination on what we want to use for our own guidelines. If you look at the broader definition, like Wikipedia has a good definition. I could read it now, but I don't need to. But it involves any multiple interests, financial or otherwise, which work against one another.
I think we mainly just want to be in accordance with Oregon law.
Right, as far as liability, sure. But as far as ethics,
Mm-hmm.
it seems to me we need to look at a broader definition, because I think it is relevant.
I agree. And remember when we were doing the mural policy, a part of that is setting up a art selection committee. Well, an art selection committee, I think, should have its own conflict of interest policy separate from the Arts Commission policy, because they have a little bit different function, so they may have a little bit different conflict of interest, and that's a part of the master plan. And so various conflict of interest policies may be niche things for different groups of people, I think, too.
I don't
also, the city or the commission, if either one, if they decide that they want a stronger conflict of interest policy, then they have the ability, or we have the ability to do that.
Right, good.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Agreed.
every city councilor and mayor is subject to the conflict of interest. I mean, we had to do that when I was on the council. And if there was ever anything that came up in a meeting that you considered that you might have a conflict, you had to declare it before anything was discussed. I mean, it applies to every elected as well as employed person with the city.
But that was financial only, right,
Yes.
Linda?
No, it could be a business interest or a something that you could, like the second half of what Tyler said, that conceivably in the future, by having done this, you could derive. It's not like a quid pro quo, automatically you make money by doing this. It's something that could lead to your monetary gain.
But it's still about monetary gain.
Yeah,
Right.
That's where the conflict comes, yeah.
Not entirely. In terms of the council positions, we've had to have several folks have to recluse themselves if they're in, like for instance, a good friend brought something to the forefront of the council, and there might be a perception of biasness that way.
Yeah, if that friend made money and you weren't making anything, it still is a conflict.
Right, right. And so I know that it's more than finances, but every year, I know I sign a conflict of interest statement, and it is mostly about financial, but when it comes to the operations within a city, it could be personal, it could be influencing decisions, somebody who's your close friend or your relative, those kind of things are also involved there.
even if it has nothing to do with money.
Re-
If it's influencing your decision, then it's a conflict of interest.
Well, you can have a moral conflict of interest within your own mind that isn't a legal conflict of interest. And so if you were conflicted on an issue, if it were me, I would say I have a personal conflict of interest on that, and so I'm abstaining. That's the way I personally would handle it. Any more?
Ultimately, what we have now is just, the Oregon law that specifically
Right.
speaks to the financial component. I
That's
think
the
if
part
we
we have
wanted to develop anything further, that would probably need to be direction that the council provides to the commission if we wanted to have a more exhaustive conflict of interest policy.
Also, I was reading the Oregon ethics laws, and they said specifically they list Planning Commission as being one of the targeted bodies, as well as the legislature, for potential ethics things, and then they list commissions who, like we have, because we have the power to spend money within our commission. So those are the entities that are covered by the Oregon ethics laws that Tyler's referencing here. But like I said, at any time, the Arts Commission can make an autonomous decision to change its own bylaws. And that's where our conflict of interest statement is. It says in our bylaws that we can make amendments to our bylaws on our own.
I think anything we do is going to require approval and endorsement by the city council.
Not according to our bylaws though, right, Tyler?
I'd have to pull those up again and reread the what that last section states.
Okay.
Linda
Well,
doesn't
in the
point it.
future, if somebody wants to, is interested in doing a change in the conflict of interest policy, that would be a good area of investigation, and let me know, and we'll set up a committee to do that.
Just so you know that the city council has a agenda sometime in the future, which has been delayed for all the other reasons that we're so busy, to look at policies like this for all the committees and commissions to see if there isn't anything else that could be added to what we already have. So
I think that's a
know
good
that the
idea,
council
Carl.
has got some things that they're looking at doing. As soon as they have time, they'll probably put that together.
Did our bylaws, when we first made them, have to be approved by the city?
No,
They didn't?
no,
Oh, okay.
Odd.
we voted
That
them,
is
we
odd.
voted on them ourselves.
It's odd, especially since the committee doesn't require even one member of it to be a citizen of the city, that they could just form their own bylaws, pass their own bylaws, and not have any city input on that at all. That seems odd to me.
Well, there was a reason for that.
Tim Yoshida set it up with Zach Chamberlain, and we spent 2 or 3 different meetings at the beginning fine-tuning the bylaws, and then unfortunately when Zach left, the bylaws disappeared and Tyler has had to reconstruct them. We've re-voted on them. I think you had to sit through that meeting, Linda.
Mm-hmm.
And we re-voted on them, and I noticed subsequently that the mission statement that Pam, Leah Topliff, and I worked on wasn't put into the new bylaws when we passed them, and I thought at some point when we had a lull that we would relook at the mission statement as well. But yes, our bylaws do state that we have the ability to amend them at will, and it just requires a meeting notice of so many days. It's in one of the sections in the bylaws. Anything else on that? Okay, do we have anyone who has joined the meeting subsequently?
No, not at this time.
Okay, so why don't we go ahead and start the regular meeting? We'll kick it off, calling that to order and have roll call, which, Tyler, do you want to do that or?
Sure. Am I muted still? Hold on.
Nope.
Nope. I had minimized my screen to pull up the agenda, and then I wasn't sure if I was muted or not.
Okay.
I'm going to go in the order that you are on my screen because I cannot physically remember where you all sit in council chambers now that I'm put on the spot. So, Commissioner Smithstead.
Here.
Commissioner Jordan. I can hear, I see her mouthing here. So,
Okay, here.
Commissioner Morrow.
Oh, I'm here.
Commissioner Malone.
Here.
Commissioner Bosserman. Commissioner Senek is excused, is that correct?
Yes,
And Commissioner Hawley.
Yeah, it's muted.
thank you. Okay, so does anyone have a change to the agenda?
Just in case we get some people that join us, I'd like to change the agenda to move approval of the minutes up to up in the agenda to now, so that we can all vote on it.
Any objections?
None.
Shaking heads.
No, no
Okay.
objection.
Let's go ahead then and vote on the minutes.
I'll move to approve the minutes.
We need to approve the minutes for July 15th, I believe it was.
Yes.
And Tyler made a note on the minutes today. Does anyone have any other changes to the minutes or discussion on the minutes?
No.
Hands?
No.
No.
Okay. Then let's go ahead and call for a vote on the minutes. Aye.
Aye.
I
Aye.
Linda, was that you that moved to approve?
I moved to approve them.
Did we have a second?
Second for Marcia.
Marcia's
Marcia, thank you.
Oh, I didn't know that we had
It's
to do
unanimous.
that now
Yeah.
that we didn't have Robert's rules anymore.
Well, you still gotta do first and second.
Who doesn't have
It was
Robert's rules?
practice.
Yeah, it's good practice.
Okay. All right. Let's see. No speakers for public comment at this time. Pam, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, am I on, let's see, yeah, okay. Yeah, I thought it would be helpful for us to mention some of the things that stood out to us with the many comments that we've gotten from the public, things that we might want to work on later. And I just had a couple of things here that stood out to me that I just wanted it to go on record for something that we could bring up at another time. Number one is the process is flawed. A lot of people felt that the process for selecting this mural was flawed, and I think we need to look at that. People felt that all artwork should go out for bid, and that when soliciting advice on only a single idea, you really don't get critical feedback. So if you want critical feedback from the public, there has to be a choice. Number two, a lot of people complained that arts commissioners, most of us were not Sandy residents. And I think we need to discuss that. A lot of people wondered why we didn't solicit grants like from Clackamas County Art Alliance, personal and business donations instead of asking for city funds. And we know that we need to start working on applying for grants for things. We've tried to get someone to help with grant writing, and you know, this is already on our mind, but I just wanted to mention that. I think there was a lot of talk about inclusivity and exclusivity in various ways, that the art in Sandy needs minority representation, both in the process and in creation of the art. So minority artists, minority participation in the creation, but also with regard to subject matter. People felt that we shouldn't just be depicting white settlers, and you know, we should have native representation or minority representation. And I think also with regard to that, some people made valid suggestions that when we solicit public feedback via civic groups and Facebook and the ways that we've gone about doing it, we're only going to get a niche audience, and that niche audience is likely to be more older white people who can afford to take the time to go to meetings like the Garden Club or the Art Guild, and who can afford to volunteer for projects. And it seems to me that that's a valid point, that that does narrow things down. I don't know how one goes about getting feedback broader than that, or getting involvement broader than that, but I think it's a subject worth discussing further. And then the last one is just, I thought it was a really good idea to get high school kids involved in something, and I hope somebody picks that up and runs with it, because you know, it was suggested that the high school kids are really depressed right now and they need a project to work on. And you know, one person, Carrie Snodgrass, I think her name is, sent in a letter saying that she thought we should contact the high school art teacher and see if he wanted to get involved and get something going. And I just thought that was an excellent idea. Maybe even for the blue wall that's right next to the what is it, coffee shop?
Coffee.
It's the mattress store.
Yeah, you know, something like that.
It's a very visible spot. It'd be a great place for a mural.
I thought it was a really good suggestion, and it would be, the community could really get behind that. So
As far as in getting other people involved, it's easier to get parents and different younger groups involved when schools are in session.
well, sure it is.
You can reach out to the schools and the teachers and, you know, send flyers through the schools to reach those parents. But when they're not in session, it's harder to reach those diverse groups.
Sure.
Is that the end of your list there, Pam?
Yeah, that was the end of my list for now.
I think that's great, Pam. It's a good
Okay,
list.
Thank you. Carl, did you have any council liaison report?
None, other than we're very interested in watching how this process with the mural progresses. I think it's something that we're learning a lot in terms of how people get involved. It's been one of those things that's always been a little difficult in all the years that we've done things. I'm sure Linda remembers how people don't or won't until their very last moment get involved. And so there's always something we can do better. And every time you have a new technology, you end up with a new way of getting people involved.
It's not unusual, yeah.
One of the things I've always noticed that if you start talking about dollars and you finally get to the point where you're going to either spend them or ask people to pay for them, that's when everybody gets involved. So if you'll notice that much of the conversation around the input was about money of some kind, conflict of interest, or why not go after grants, or why not use other kinds of formats to pay for them and take money out of even the urban renewal fund. So again, the council is watching this really careful, probably taking some suggestions from some of the things that are happening to be able to do that in terms of the future. We've got a huge project coming up with the sewer plant that dwarfs this particular project. This is less than $20,000, and the sewer plant's talking about $80 million. And so we certainly will be looking at how this thing progressed to be able to make sure we can do some of those things. I want to tell you too, though, in all of the comments that I listened to, and I think I've read almost all of them, been several suggestions. There's 600 or 700 comments. I think my eyes crossed somewhere around 500 or 600. That a lot of these are really earnestly thought out, and some of these are based on information that's misled. Some of these are based on opinions and emotions. So you got a wide variety of people that are looking at how this process went, and I think it's important to kind of keep that in mind, that some of this stuff is going to be hopefully changing our way of doing things. Some of this stuff, I don't know if you can implement those things.
Yeah.
So we need to think our way through, make sure that it's right. I don't know that there is only one process to be able to get public input. We've tried many ways and put several different processes together over the years. We have open meeting regulations that have to be followed, and so that's important. But when it comes to how we put that all together, there's a lot of possibilities. And so I think this has been a really good process to be able to listen to the public. Public's certainly interested in it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten so many people inputting it to us. And so I think we should listen to, and we should be affected by it. I don't think that we should stop it. I think that we should be listening and experiencing some things that are happening there. And this is this last little bit is my opinion, not the entire council's position. The part that I think the council is concerned about is making sure that it's fair, evenly handed, done. If there's any illegalities that we missed, correct those things. It is my opinion, not only my opinion, I think that this thing could and can go forward with some corrections. But in terms of the council, I don't know if there's any consensus that way. I haven't brought that particular one, other than the Urban Renewal Council has decided twice not to withdraw their money and to continue going forward unanimously. So I think that's all I have right now.
I have a question
Thank you,
for Carl.
Linda?
Question for Carl. One thing I did notice, and it might be just a matter of educating some of the ones who made comments to let them know, but a lot of them were conflating the money given to this mural as being taken away from the pool. Strong advocates of the pool and going, yeah, you close down the pool, but you're going to give $11,000 of the pool money to the mural. And I know that those two are not joined like that, but that's how, if you're not familiar with how urban renewal works and you are upset about the pool being closed, you might conflate the two.
Thank you, Linda. There was also people regarding potholes. So I'd say that same education thing, you know, how the city budget is allocated.
Yeah.
Want to address that, Carl?
Yeah, you can't make people understand things sometimes. People come to these kinds of meetings with emotion, opinions, misunderstood knowledge about rules, regulations, and just how processes should be done. So there needs to be a way to gently and to openly be able to help people understand where we are with some of the rules and regulations. Things about money and how that process works are very detailed. Talk to Tyler. He knows all the rules and regulations, and we have to depend on him to make sure we don't do things incorrectly, whether it's a planning commission or art commission or council or parks committee, any of those things. So we need to depend on the folks that know all the details. But it really needs to be a informative way going about it, because sometimes these folks have very strong opinions. I heard some of those, and they weren't all right. So somehow we need to figure out a way to educate them in a gentle way so we don't end up with a lot of argumentation, but inform them we need to. Some of these things are really important. And to some degree, for example, $11,000 taken away from the millions of dollars that we've been looking at spending on the pool, to some degree, you know, I agree that there is some dollars in there, but $11,000 is a very small amount when you're thinking about multiple millions of dollars for the pool. It is something to be thinking about. And of course, everybody has their own opinion. So Hope
Thank
that-
you, Carl.
Linda, sorry, Becky. I'd say to that point, Linda, I'm working on an article for the upcoming newsletter discussing urban renewal, sort of urban renewal 101. How can those funds be used? And it's, capital improvements and in accordance with the plan and not for ongoing expenses like lifeguard staff, so trying to paint that picture a little better, given some of those comments that I saw on Facebook.
Yeah, and the pothole comment
And
too.
yeah.
And there's the street fund that, there's different funds.
So we've done a little bit of work in the last couple of newsletters regarding property taxes. Just because you have a Sandy address doesn't mean you pay Sandy property taxes. That's a big question that we often get.
I know, yeah.
And
I
where those,
noticed a lot of the people that gave comments at the last meeting and they'd give their addresses like Coleman Road or, I'm going, you have a Sandy mailing address, but you do not live in the city. Coleman Road is not in the city, but they think they live in the city. We had a nurse practitioner that was helping us and she goes, well, I live in Sandy, but for some reason I can't vote on stuff in Sandy. I said, well, where do you live? Oh, out by Cottrell School. Well, you have a Sandy mailing address. You do not live in the city limits. They have expanded in a couple areas, but you're not there yet. Look at your tax bill.
yeah. So we did some property tax work. I also did an article on like funds 101. So just the brief description of what a street fund is and what an urban renewal fund is, but didn't do the deep dive into actually the legal requirements. And so that's this month's newsletter topic from the finance department.
It's hard whenever you try to do it, but trying to do it when we're in COVID and people are having to do learn stuff either on Facebook, which, as you said before, sometimes the information is not accurate, and it's not vetted, or it'll be better when we can actually have meetings where people show up and you talk to them in person, and it doesn't have to go through the nuance of comments on Facebook, because you can't read sarcasm or those kind of comments. They may not mean them the way they sound, or they may mean them worse than what they sound. You may take it the wrong way. So it'll be better when we're back together.
A last comment there, Pam?
For Tyler, what do you and Jeff plan to do with your the comments? Once you get it all sorted and compiled, where does it go? And will there be any public access to it?
Yeah, so the general idea that we have at this point in time is get some basic information out of it. So how many unique commenters were there? We know there was 600 or 700, but how many actual, unique individuals were there that were commenting? How many comments of those 600 were actually in regards to the mural versus we should be spending this on the pool instead? Because that's not quite relevant or helpful to the mural conversation when we're seeking information or feedback about the mural. So we want to just break it down into some of those, larger buckets. I don't foresee the council reading 600 comments from start to finish in an already lengthy council packet. So getting, we had 174 positive feedback. We had, 142 negative feedback, and just kind of get some metrics like that so that the council can get an idea of exactly what was said on Facebook without the expectation of reading line by line, comment per comment, because really it's a lengthy document when you compile all those together.
And especially unique to one individual, as opposed to individuals who post 10 or 15 times.
Right.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
And
that will be public, Pam, that it'll get put into a staff report for the September 8th Urban Renewal Board meeting. So and as soon as we have the report done, we'll send that out to the Arts Commission as well, so you guys have that same information.
Will that include the letters that have been sent to City Council as well?
Yep, all the emails will be compiled in there as well. The emails, because we have those, on our server, it's easy just to print those and include them individually in the packet. And a lot of those are addressed to the council, so we have an obligation to pass those off to council, in their entirety, whereas the Facebook comments, just funneling those down into relevant buckets, I think is the best approach there.
So Tyler, I know a number of those comments were sent to me directly. I don't know if those were carbon copied to you, but you might end up sending a note out to all the council folks, because I know there are several letters about this particular mural that were sent directly to individual council, probably the mayor too. And it might be worth it to have them forward them to you to make sure they all get included.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, I don't believe we have any more business. If someone would like to call for an adjournment.
We do
if
have
we
one
do that.
attendee now that just popped in. Someone that has phoned into the meeting. I don't know if they have any public comment they'd like to provide at this point.
Perhaps you'd like to give the outline for public comment?
Yeah, so the Arts Commission, appreciates and welcomes public comment. Anyone from the public that would like to provide public comment needs to state their name and address. They have 3 minutes to speak. So caller, if you'd like to provide feedback, you can press *9 to virtually raise your hand, and then I can allow you to speak. Give them just a moment to see if they have any feedback they want to provide. I'm not seeing a hand raise.
No, see the phone number, but no.
No hand. All right, well, it does not appear that they want to provide any feedback. So with that,
Okay.
I'll turn it back to you, Becky.
I will adjourn the meeting then.
I will move to adjourn. Second by Dan.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Adjourn.
Aye.